Good morning, Delaware. Welcome to Off the Shelf. It's great to have you here, and it's great to be actually pretty much anywhere these days. So it's a delight to have you with us. Good morning, Nicole. How you doing?
Good morning, George. I'm doing well.
Great. I'm delighted to say that our guests today are Jane Hawes from Delaware County. Hey, Jane.
Hello, how are you guys doing?
Good, good. And Bob Anderson, who is with Ohio Jobs and Family Services. And we are going to be talking this morning during the show about unemployment and employment resources that we have available through the Delaware County District Library. During this, we always have things about how to find a job on our website, but we are really intensifying what's available and trying to pull together the resources that are available to Delaware County residents and state residents to make it easier for you. So we will talk more about that in the second half of the show. I don't know what it's like for you at home right now, Nicole, but are you having a chance to read or binge or anything like that these days?
No, you're crazy.
I know we almost just had a guest on the show, so when I saw Wynn come down the stairs there, but
yeah, exactly. I try and hide in my basement. It's cold and it's dark, and she still finds me. I don't know. I don't know how that happens.
You didn't tell her about the trolls that live down there?
Oh no, that would be an enticement because of the movie Trolls.
That's right.
Like, oh yeah, cool, they're down there. Sweet. No, so I'm not reading much at all. I'm reading bedtime stories, and I've talked about a little bit of those before. What I do have to talk about today, though, is on our social media earlier this week, we posted a list that was created by Katie Height at our Orange Branch Library. And she made a list of titles that you can check out on Hoopla, which is, you've heard me talk about plenty of times before. Hoopla is a way that you can connect your card to digital downloads on demand right now. You get 6 a month. But even during this time, Hoopla has some bonus borrows, is what they're calling them. And Katie has created a list of calming titles. They're all very zen. They're all very calming. And so I went through and I downloaded 2 of them. And the first one, there's a Zen proverb that says you should sit in meditation for 20 minutes every day, unless you're too busy, and then you should sit for an hour. And I just thought that was a very nice way to kind of like, yes, this is true. So that actually is a little quote, a little sampling from the book, The Little Book of Meditations. And this book is part of the Bonus Borrows collection. It's on our list. You'll find it on Facebook and on Twitter. And that's all it is this little tiny 160-page book that you can read on your Kindle, on your phone, on anything like that can look through an ebook. And you just tap through. It's got fun little proverbs like that, fun little guides. It explains to you how to get into a practice of meditation. And then it even gives you some prompts if you need something to focus your mind on while you're meditating. The other fun one is called Make Yourself Cozy, and it's by Katie Vaz. And this is another bonus borrow, so it's not going to count in your 6 borrows that you get every month. And this Make Yourself Cozy is another guide for practicing self-care, and it has different suggestions like go stretch, just go in your living room and just do some stretches, reach for the sky, touch your toes, sit down, lean to the right, lean to the left. And it's got beautiful illustrations in it. Katie is actually an illustrator herself. She has another book. If you look her up on Amazon, she has an adult coloring book that's going to be another way to kind of stay kind of zen if you're just a little stressed out during this time. So that's what I've been looking at this week.
Well, for somebody who's as cynical about stuff like that as I am, I have found myself counting breaths this week.
Yeah.
I think it's just between the thunderstorms, the hail, the craziness in the world. It's just been, we've needed whatever we can find to help us kind of just zen out. So,
right.
So I didn't ask you before we got on the air, Jane and Bob, but is there anything that you've been reading or listening to that's been helping you through this time?
Well, yeah, I'm one of those people who always has to have one book and one nonfiction going at the same time. And I alternate at the same sitting, reading it. And the one I decided to reread for fiction is A Gentleman in Moscow, which if you're familiar with that one, it's a gentleman who is sentenced to house arrest in a hotel in Moscow in the early 1900s. And it's the most beautifully written book. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the author's name right, Amor Towles, but it is just brilliant, beautiful. It's so uplifting and so I'm rereading that one, and then the other one I'm reading is nonfiction. It's a bite-sized history of France, and basically history filtered through food. And so it's kind of also satisfying my urge to travel.
Yeah.
So the two that I'm working on right now.
Cool. Bob, how about you? Anything in particular? Or?
I am in the process of rereading a book by Simon Sinek. It's titled Find Your Way. It's a leadership book, and I really enjoy Simon Sinek's style and his message. And I think during this time, of course, we're reading so many reports and emails and everything else that it's just nice to kind of sit back and look at this book and identify our why. Why are we all doing our jobs that we are currently doing? It's not about the how and what we do, it's why we do it. And I relate that to myself and to all the people here at Job and Family Services who are providing these services to the people in need. And we're kind of, I look at it that we're a lifeline right now for so many people during this time. So it's a good reminder to go back and review that book.
That's Simon Sinek is one of my favorites. And by the way, his last name is spelled Sinek, not like cynical. And he's anything but. If you want a really good, fast introduction to him, he did one of the best TED Talks ever, which is called Start With Why. And you can find that on YouTube. And it'll be 20 minutes of your life that you will realize it will change your life, because he really does focus on that. Knowing your purpose, knowing why you do things is so important, much more important than how you do them or what specifically you're doing. So that's a great choice. Thanks, Bob. I'm reading a novel now myself that was recommended to me by a friend of mine, and it's not a new novel. It came out in 1992, and it's called simply Was, W-A-S. It's by an author named Jeff Ryman, and it's a really interesting book. It interlaces the stories of a fictional girl. It's fictional within the story. Her name is Dorothy Gale. If that name sounds familiar, it's because that's Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz. Only it's spelled G-A-E-L here. And there's a reason why. Because what he's talking about is a young girl who was raised by her aunt and uncle in rural Kansas in the late 1800s, and who is very, very unhappy in her life. And she is an inspiration to a traveling substitute teacher named L. Frank Baum, who then writes, of course, The Wizard of Oz. But that's one story in this book. Another story is about Frances Gumm, who we all know better as Judy Garland, growing up. Part of it is when she's making the movie The Wizard of Oz. Part of it is when she is a little older and she has kind of separated from her family, and she and her mother have fallen out and things are not good there. And so there's that story going on. And then the third story is about an actor who is a huge fan of The Wizard of Oz, and he's finally gotten his dream role. He's going to get to play the Scarecrow in The Wizard of Oz in a stage production, but he falls ill. And this is when this was written in the early 1990s. He falls ill with AIDS. And as one last thing is he's trying to find as much as he can about this young girl, Dorothy Gale, who was the inspiration for Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. So the three stories are all kind of intertwined. It's an amazingly intricate structure in this book. And I'd never heard of this author, Jeff Ryman, before my friend Stuart told me about him. He's a science fiction author. He's written 8 novels, although he hasn't written a new one in about 10 years. He's won the Arthur C. Clarke Award, the John Campbell Award, the Phil K. Dick Award, and he even won a Nebula for a novelette called What We Found. He's a Canadian. He lives in the UK now, and he teaches creative writing at the University of Manchester. So if you are a fan of The Wizard of Oz, I think you'd really like this novel. It's long. It's well over 300 pages. But the way the stories intertwine and the way they kind of draw a picture of what it was like to live in Kansas in the 1870s, and then it kind of jumps to the 1890s, is really good. And the kind of the behind the scenes at MGM when The Wizard of Oz was being made is told through the eyes of a makeup artist. And so it's not like an actor or a director or a screenwriter. It's one of the people who made movies possible without being out there in front of the screen. So again, I can't recommend it highly enough. I'm thoroughly enjoying it. It's wonderful to be thinking about something besides today. And so it's a nice bit of fantasy for people who maybe don't like the kind of sword and sorcery fantasy. And again, the book is called Was, and it's by Jeff, Geoff Ryman, just like Ryman Auditorium, Ryman. So I think you might enjoy that. So I think what we're going to do is break a little early here so that we have plenty of time to talk about what's available in terms of resources for people who are out of work, looking for work, hoping to get back to work. And so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Off the Shelf on 92.9 WDLR.
Welcome back to Off the Shelf. We're here with Nicole Fowles from the Delaware County District Library, with Bob Anderson from the Delaware County Job and Family Services. I misspoke at the beginning of the show. I said Ohio Department of Jobs and Family Services, but Bob is definitely Delaware County. And Jane Hawes from the County Commissioners Office, who is representing the Delaware County Economic Development area for right now. So Bob, let's start with you. Let's talk a little bit about what it is that Job and Family Services is doing for people and with people during this crisis. I know you've got a lot of things on your plate right now.
Yes, George, thank you. Primarily what we're seeing is an influx in applications for SNAP, also known as food stamps, and our Medicaid applications as people are out of work and trying to meet those needs. We are processing primarily from home. Probably 90% of our staff are working remotely and doing a great job doing so. But people who wish to apply for either SNAP or Medicaid can call 844-640-6446, and that will put them into our shared services line, and we can actually take the application right over the phone. The state has been working with counties, and much like they are with unemployment, they are expediting applications because they know so many people are affected by COVID-19. So we want to get services and provide supports as soon as we can. Another program that we have within our agency is our PRC, or Prevention Retention Contingency Program. And one aspect that we've written in and amended the plan with is a program that will assist anyone affected by COVID-19. So any person that has a dependent child and is at 200% of the poverty level would be eligible. They can actually go onto our county website if they just search Delaware County JFS, and they can see more details and apply online. Part of the plan also is putting stipends in anyone that's caring for maybe a grandchild or a nephew or niece. It's kinship caregivers that we also are providing stipends for those people as well, and various supports. So people affected by COVID-19 that would not normally apply for our PRC programs are welcome to get online and apply, and we will provide supportive services as we can.
That's great. You mentioned the 200% level there. How's that measured? Is it like 200%? You made 200% of the federal poverty level in 2019, or what's the time frame that they measure for that?
The 200%, we actually look back 30 days prior to the application. Okay. So people who were affected early on of this crisis in mid-March, we're approaching that 30-day limit. And just to give an idea of a household of four, 200% would be $4,367. So that kind of gives an idea of the range. And we have a chart that we go by a household of two and up.
Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so that's really good to know. We'll give that number again for SNAP and Medicaid before the end of the show. So if you got to grab a pencil, do that. Now I'd like to switch over to Jane Hawes from the Board of County Commissioners, who's going to talk a little bit about economic development. We know that Delaware County has been a fast-growing state county in the state, and that development has been almost like you water a little ground and a real estate development grows up, or a new business pops up. So, but I can imagine that your charge in economic development in the county has changed somewhat.
It has, yeah. I mean, we've always had a pretty strong business retention and expansion program in the county. So sort of the structure was in place to pivot and start focusing on that right now. But literally within the week of the stay-at-home order occurring, the staff there, and that includes our Bob Lamb, who's the economic development director for the county, they sort of switched over immediately to focusing on our existing businesses. What can we do to help? And a lot of it really right from the get-go was with the small business administration loans that are out there, which, they could be confusing to people to try to figure out what is that about. They have his entire staff and including himself have all put themselves completely at the disposal of our community. If you go on their website, which you can get to on the county website, which is co.delaware.oh.us, click on the business tab, and they've all put their own phone numbers on there.
Wow.
And they are taking those calls every day. I will say Bob has 2 coworkers, neither of whom are toilet trained. So they're pretty entertaining. But it has not stopped that man from getting work done. And I know they have been an enormous help already to a lot of people, but navigating the small business administration loan process, even with the unemployment insurance, people who just need advice on what do I do and how do I do that? They have made themselves experts on this kind of thing. We're also in the process right now of gearing up. We're going to be able to offer business owners who need professional business counseling a couple of hours for free, and we're getting all that in place right now to help them do the planning for the future. Because I think just within the last week, we've all sort of heard the dialogue start to change from like, okay, looks like we're making it through this. We're flattening the curve. Now what? And they're already thinking in terms of like, okay, what are we going to do when we restart the economy, and what's the smart way to do it? So if you go on their website, they've got all the contact information that you need, and they are there 24/7.
That is just amazing to see that kind of a change. And I think this has been a real eye opener, I think, for people who don't work in government, how quickly so many of our agencies have pivoted like this. I mean, it's unbelievable. I think people have, unfairly criticized government as being kind of slow and bureaucratic, but I think we've kind of shown during this, and I hate to, I don't want to sprain my shoulder patting myself on the back or anything, but seeing what you guys are doing, is watching the daily press briefings with the governor and lieutenant governor and Dr. Acton, seeing how they're trying to put these different agencies into different roles, watching what we're doing with the Ohio Guard, with how they're helping to help rebuild and get supplies out and make these medical services available and everything. It's just been a real inspiration to the whole community, I think. And it's a real tribute to what your agencies are doing to make this happen. So I just want to give you some kudos there.
Out too that, I mean, a lot of us, when I started in my position about 4 years ago, immediately there was a lot of what I had to do that was about planning for worst case scenarios. And I always thought, oh gosh, maybe I'll never need to use this. But we go through these drills, and Nicole, you're part of the same group of communication people, and we meet quarterly, monthly. We all are sharing information with each other. And I think that's part of what made it possible for everyone to just kickstart this immediately, start sharing information. Obviously, the health district gets huge props. They're our lead agency in this whole emergency. But we all communicated with each other immediately about making sure we're communicating the same things, that it's consistent. The other thing I have to point out too is our Job and Family Services Department. They are always dealing with people who are in need. So this was really not a huge shift, I think, in their mindset and how they operate. They do this 24/7, 365. So it's changed.
And we've tried to find our place in it, as a library system. We think about, okay, well, we won't have the materials, we won't have our buildings, but we still do have, even the governor, Mike DeWine, he gave us a shout out during his press briefing on Thursday when he said libraries may not be open, but you can still drive your car into the parking lot to use their Wi-Fi. You can still sit in the parking lot and use their Wi-Fi, and they're going to have that there for you 24/7. And we've even thought about, okay, how else can we benefit the community? And so we're taking the links from the Delaware County Jobs and Family Services, and we're taking the links from the Delaware County Economic Development offices, and we're putting them on our Delaware Library website because we want to be sure that people are getting the right information at the right time to go to the right place.
Right. Yeah. No. And Bob, I know you can speak to the fact of, what your people, the information they're sharing and doing.
Go ahead, Bob. I'm sorry.
Okay, that's okay. Yeah. So Jane is right. A lot of the services we're doing, we just continue. We're just doing more of them. Probably the biggest factor is just the fact that we are not in a physical location, and our employees and staff have stepped up. That we're providing the same services over the phone. The biggest thing that we probably see is our Ohio Means Jobs Delaware County Center had to close, which a lot of people would come, just like they would to the library, to utilize computers and to be able to apply online. But we are directing people to the right place. I think that's a great idea that people can still come to the library and use the Wi-Fi to apply. But our staff is, we equip people with cell phones or their personal cell phones, and they are still in contact and walking people through the programs that they can in providing services for every age group out there.
Well, I hate to harp on something that seems completely different, but it reminds me of how important it is for people to actually do the census, because all of these federal dollars that we're getting are being allocated by population. That's based on the census. And if you haven't done your census form yet, you need to do it, because this whole situation brings into really clear focus how important having accurate numbers for each state is. So I'm sorry, I just put in that plug for the census because I think it is so awfully important.
No, it is. Yeah, if I can interject, because we work with our regional planning commission in the county. There's sort of the lead agency on the census. And we were kind of joking last week with putting out our push for the big start to the census. And Scott Sanders, their director, we were noticing that Holmes County was the lead, had the top response rate in the state. And we were like, oh,
I know why.
What the heck? And if you go and you look at their stats, it was like maybe 13% of their 51% response rate came in via the internet. The rest of it all came in through the mail, which is totally consistent with being, sort of the seat of the Amish population. And Delaware County was at 48%. We were like, no way, we have got to beat Holmes County. So 2 days ago, yes, we apparently caught fire, as he was told, and we are now in the lead for the state.
Ooh. All right. Yeah. I love it when Delaware County's in the lead for anything. I'm just all in favor of that. So great. Okay, I said at the earlier that we would repeat that number for making SNAP or Medicaid applications. That number again is 844-640-6446. So make sure you've got that handy. And also, Bob, do you want to just give the website again? And I'll ask Jane to do the same thing for the assistance that you need. So what's your website?
Okay, our website, if they want to apply for PRC, would be jfs.co.delaware.oh.us.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Jane, for people who are looking for help with economic development, where should they be going?
Yeah, the simplest thing to do is just go to the county website, which is co.delaware.oh.us, and just click on the business tab up on the top right corner, and that will get you right to the economic development department section of the website.
Well, that's great. Okay, good. Thank you both very much. And Nicole, you mentioned a couple of different sites that we're using at the Delaware County Library.org or DelawareLibrary.org. I wish I could remember my own site. DelawareLibrary.org/. We've got two places people need to know about, right?
Yes, you can go to delawarelibrary.org and you can go to our job site. So that's /JOBSITE, or you can go to our press room, which is where we're keeping all of our COVID updates. And that is /press-room. And so either of those will get you there. And I believe we kind of have an emergency banner at the top of our website, and that emergency banner will take you right to the job site at this point.
Okay, great. Well, Bob, Jane, thank you both very much. Thanks for all of the service you're providing to the people of Delaware County right now. Nicole, it's always a pleasure working with you. And
always a pleasure.
And Gage, set this up for us. Thank you so much. We use Skype this time. I think you're going to notice a big change in the sound quality.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much for doing that, Gage.
Mm-hmm.
And for the time being, we will see you online.